like we said, she has been touted as being incredibly strong, and I would imagine she is because she has the confidence of somebody with that strength. That's just like, I'll do all three. I'll get rid of them. Don't worry about it. It's like, all right, girl, damn.
AOA, that's a triple play. New episodes, I couldn't wait. Yeah. Open your mind at the first gate. Press play, no need to debate. AOA, check me out. Look, plugged in, you can catch the hype. Golden Dawn, how we follow the light. Anime like life, married to it, my wife.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages? Welcome back to the AOA show. I'm your host, as always, Ian, along with the boy Isaiah.
Ohio.
And today we are talking Tower of God, part 2 of our question analysis. Join our Discord if you want to post some questions, and you might hear us answer it in one of our discussions. But without further ado, let's hop right into it. We have 5 questions today. First one comes from Gertron Buster. Gertron Buster asks, what are your thoughts on Adori Jahad and her saying that she is merely the blade which cuts down the enemies of the Jahad family and trying to annihilate all 3 enemies, and that the administration should strive for peace? Do you think there is a divide within the Jahad family similar to Fug? So we didn't get too much backdrop on this person. All we know is that this person is incredibly powerful, and based off the lines that we said here, it seems like there is some thing within the back of her mind that says, these folks should probably just strive for peace because I'm going to keep doing my job, whatever that is. Definitely an overachiever, if I've ever seen one before, trying to annihilate all 3 people on the list. And one thing that I kind of forgot about one of our last discussions, when somebody had asked, like, what do you think now that there's these 3 orders? And I had said, the Hell Train one is the easiest. And while I still do think it may be the easiest one, I kind of forgot about the whole, you can't actually do that if you're a ranker and go back, so you are breaking the rules, which means that you might have the administrator to deal with now. As we saw, the administrator came in and kind of peed all over everybody's cornflakes in the fight with Ivan Kell and such on the first floor of Test. So that definitely throws a wrench into things as well. So the fact that this Adori Jahad is willing to do all 3 of them and feels confident enough to do so, that's pretty crazy. And do you think there is a divide within the Jahad family similar to Fug? Yeah, I think that any hierarchy and established group that becomes too large, with so many different people, with leaders delegating to their separate groups and all that kind of thing, there's bound to be sorts of infighting and disagreements and all different types of things that will split the group at the seams. Everybody has different opinions on what should be done, what shouldn't be, etc. So I definitely think there is a divide or something along those lines within the Jahad family, similar to Thug. But that's what makes it kind of interesting to see where all of these people's opinions lie. But those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I definitely think that Adori, the whole thing with, Adori being like, yeah, like, it's our job, it's going to be our job or my job to, cut down all these enemies. Like, I will, sort of pave the path in blood of anybody that opposes Jahad, but you guys, the administration, like, should be, the peace talkers, or like, the ones that like sort of speak to the people and you're approachable and friendly. Like, you should be the PR in a sense, that the people the guys that regular people in the tower see as Jahad's administration or as Jahad's face, so to speak, in a way. Meanwhile, Adori and, her, lackeys, minions, whoever, they're the ones like in the shadows who are actually like running, around the tower and, gutting anybody that disagrees with or opposes or is a threat to Jahad. So I definitely think there's a divide there. And just even from the way that the whole Jahad giving the orders and like the way the whole thing went down at the beginning of the last couple chapters that we read with the priest and stuff, like the way that they're just willing to basically, lie, like manipulate information, like all of that stuff. It clearly speaks to like Jahad's orders come first, even like if it means turning on other people in your administration or your group or whatever. So I definitely think that has created somewhat of a of a divide for sure. What do we think about Jahad's family? I think the other thing too is that like we were saying before, but like the three orders that Jahad gave, like in a way, it's kind of like, it's a trap, and it's a trap in and of itself because one, just around the whole like illusion of choice, but more so is it not that it's like, oh, Jahad is controlling everybody by trying to give them, an option, when really he's already boxing them in with the three options, because that's somewhat obvious, but that each of these options lead into each other anyway, right? So you could be like, yeah, well, I'll just go for the kids in the Hell Train. But those kids in the Hell Train are linked to people on Fug. Bam is a high priority for Fug to protect. So if you go after Bam on the Hell Train, I'd be damned if people like Han Sung-yu or even more so Jin Sung-ha are just going to sit back and be like, nah, he can handle it. No, they're going to go over there and help him out. Vice versa, you go after Fug, Hara Ryun, and then by extension, maybe Bam and company are going to go wherever that's happening. And even the Poe Bedeau family is, I guess, sort of the outlier, but they present their own problems, being that they are one of the 10 great families. So it's like starting a war with a family of that, with a group, let's just say, of that scale, is bound just by nature to attract, whether it's, again, Bam's group, because they're just sort of moving up the tower constantly, or members of, like, it seems like an interesting trap in that, like, again, he's giving you this choice, but even by this choice, there is no choice, because it's just kill all of these people, and you're going to have to do it eventually. But I think Endori, like we said, she has been touted as being incredibly strong, and I would imagine she is, because she has the confidence of somebody with that strength that's just like, I'll do all three. I'll get rid of them. Don't worry about it. It's like, all right, girl, damn. But yeah, that's my thoughts. And then, so the second question we have is from Confuzzled Asian. They say, this time, what do you think of the display of White's power on the train station? Does he have what it takes to save the regulars on the train and to fight the rankers in Jahad's army? Does he have what it takes to save the regulars? Maybe, probably. Does he have what it takes to fight the rankers in Jahad's army? Not all of them. I mean, if what we're told is true, he's not even actually at his full power yet, and he sort of measures up to a regular. So even on his best day, I would tout that a regular is going to have a pretty tough time fighting all of the rankers in Jahad's army. And that is assuming that he does fight them all. I don't know. I think he will be a great decoy, I guess, employee, in the sense that, like, we send White out for, sort of like, again, pointing the cannon, like you send White out to just sort of like slash as many people as he can hit with his sword. And then, I don't know, I guess Bam, I'm assuming, we literally when we ended the chapters, it was like they're getting ready to depart the train. So I'm assuming it's going to be something of like they split and go into two different directions, and Team A goes one way and Team B goes the other way. As long as it doesn't mean, like, they sent White out front and center, to be like, all right, go greet the army, and then we're going to go, left and right, basically, or whatever, to sort of try and stave off as much fighting as possible. But yeah, and I guess, necessarily like not counting White out, because I know even, if you were to compare him to regulars, like, this is White we're talking about, he's not a pushover. But that's a tall bill for anybody, especially, again, somebody who were, if this was like full strength White, I think that's a different story. But from where White is right now, I don't think so. I think he'd have a pretty tough time taking all of them on by himself. But White is also nothing if not crafty and resourceful. So I don't know. Maybe he'll have some backdoor scheme to get out of it.
No, I totally agree with everything you just said. So moving on to the third question here, we have by Kenshi. Kenshi says, it just occurred to me, but the only weapons I've seen talk about before are the 13-month series, a living ignition weapon, or Emily, if you count her as a weapon. So, do you think Wangnan's new weapon is a 13-month? Why or why not? I also noticed it only spoke that one time on the hidden floor, and I didn't say anything when Karaka or Yuri were around. Do you think there's a reason for this? So breaking down this question, do I think the weapon is a 13-month? No, I do not personally. Actually, you know what? That was kind of quick and hasty. It could be. So it could be in the sense that it talks to him, and the 13-month series are known to have the spirits of fallen princesses or whoever in them. So it's not totally out of the realm of possibility that it is a 13-month weapon, one that is definitely a little more cognizant of what's going on and has their own role to play. A lot of the other 13 months, the big two that we see are the Black March and the Green April. Their spirits inside them don't really seem to take an active role in trying to like constantly be like, yo, let me out of the thing and I'll do this for you. It's more of like, all right, like, here we are, like, you know the drill. If this comes out, like, I kind of don't like you, you don't like me, like, I might help you, I might not, just kind of depends on how the wind blows, you know? And it's like, when Yuri tries to do 2 of them, they're like, okay, like, you got it, but they're not, it doesn't seem like they're trying to make an active effort, like a genie in a bottle, to, like, get out and wreak havoc on everything, whereas this weapon seemed to be a little more cognizant of that, where it was like, yo, save your friends but kill this guy for me, and, like, this, it seems to have its own plan. So I don't necessarily think it's the sword per se that has it. I think that maybe, and I've said this before, I think this is very Jahad-y looking with the red horns that come out of Jahad and Wangnan, ironically, and just like the whole gold sphere kind of looks like a sun. Looks like something that Jahad would plant there. And considering he made the whole hidden floor when we're, going back on it, it makes sense that it could be something like that. So I think that this is not a 13-month series, to long-winded way of saying. So I think it's its own thing. Let's see. What do you think? I also noticed it only spoke, the weapon, that one time on the hidden floor, and it didn't say anything when Kuraka or Yuri were around. Do you think there's a reason for this? Not particularly. I think it's probably just talking to Wangnan in general, because its plan involves Wangnan and no one else. So I doubt it's going to speak at all for anyone, Yuri, Kuraka included, Baam, whoever it is. I think it's just going to be like, Wangnan, like, this is our thing. You know what I mean? Like, you do this, you do that, and we'll be square. So those are my thoughts. But
I don't know, to be honest. If I'm not too firmly in one camp or the other when it comes to if this is a 13th month, because I don't know enough about the 13th months to be like, no, I've seen others, like, that's like, because I don't. It could be, I don't. Especially if the idea of the 13th months defies what we in the human world know about the 12 months, meaning that there's one that just doesn't exist. This could be it. You know what I mean? It hasn't gotten a name. We have, it hasn't referred to itself by a name, so we don't know what it's doing here, why it's doing here. And even if Jahad placed it, I suppose rather than making another weapon, leaving the 13th of the 13th month series here, like, could be, or maybe it's like a spell where, like, upon the hidden floor's destruction, that's when the 13th month, like, maybe the 13th month series or 13th month weapon specifically isn't just out and about in the tower, and it was hidden on the hidden floor, and the only way to bring it about was to get rid of the hidden floor. So upon the hidden floor's destruction, when Edon took the pill, that released this final weapon, and maybe this weapon is under those specifications because it's a little bit different in, as opposed to the other 12, in that in the whatever spirit is in this weapon, right? That it's not just some random cursed princess or something that's like, hey, I'm a weapon, like, whatever, like, use me or don't use me or don't go, like, that this one was sealed away on the hidden floor because maybe even Jahad had a hard time, like, keeping it, like, controlled and keeping it under wraps, and, like, he believed that nobody else, even another princess, should wield this weapon because of maybe the kind of crazy things that it can do, or it can get up to, or that the things that it can influence other people to do. I don't know. And again, it is just as likely this isn't one of the 13th months, but I guess if in my mind, I'm just like, if it's not a 13th month, I don't know what the fuck it is or where it came from or how it could have, why it's that, like, speculation just kind of goes in this endless loop for me. So I'm going to personally put my ticket on it is, just because I can, I guess, sort of like wrap up and put a period on my theory with it. But it could not be. I could be 1,000% wrong. And then why do I think it didn't say anything to or speak when Kuraka and Yuri were around? I do think it is like sort of like you were saying, like it's look, I got be my thing is with Wangnan here. I'm not it's not trying to let itself be known to everybody else. Maybe it even I don't know, because my other thing is the way it refers to Wangnan is it refers to him by seat of the king, right? Obviously, he doesn't even know his name, but that not being the point, because only a very few specific people or a very small group of people know that phrase and know what it means and know that Wangnan is somebody that you could refer to as that. So the fact that this sword knew all three and that's how it identified Wangnan before even speaking to him clearly tells us that, like, that is what this sword is looking for in one way, shape, or form, in some sense. And so, again, I think its beef is with Wangnan. It wants to be with Wangnan, and perhaps whether it's, just speaking to anybody or around anybody, might give it away to other people, like Yuri, who's another princess, or maybe it's not even talking to Wangnan out loud. Like maybe this is a voice only Wangnan can hear in his head. I don't know, but I do think regardless which way, it is trying to sort of keep a low profile in the sense that it's like, yeah, it's just a regular dagger. Don't worry about it. But it's like, I do also talk to Wangnan and tell him to kill people. So that's that. Okay, question number 4 is from Riru. They say, there's a really short blink and you miss it moment where Baam says that he's going to make Rachel pay for what she did to Kun. Then it cuts to Beta asking Endorsi what's wrong and pointing out that she doesn't seem very happy about this, even though Baam letting go of Rachel is what she wanted. What do you think that means? How will this affect Endorsi's character in the future? I think, at least from what we gathered from Endorsi and Rachel's last conversation, which was one of my favorite convos of them, Endorsi's kind of had it with Rachel, kind of had it with, like, like most of these characters now, the way that she talks about other people, the way that she talks about herself, the whole playing the victim game here. And, Endorsi doesn't want to see Baam, continually get roped in to Rachel's BS. So I think whether it was like, Endorsi was sort of the progenitor here of like trying to push Beta to give Baam that recorded footage or whatever so that he could see this, or whether, like, I guess what I'm getting at is I don't know if it's like Endorsi wanted Baam to know this because it's like, Baam, you deserve to know this, or if she specifically showed him with the intent of him getting, upset enough to be like, all right, that's it, I'm done with Rachel. Because, we know that that's what Endorsi would want. And again, from that last conversation with them, we do know that Endorsi is a little bit jealous of the level of attention that Rachel gets from Baam. So I think it's going to, I think though, like, it's one thing for Endorsi to want Baam's attention. It's another thing to watch him, like, sever his tie with Rachel. Because again, I think that, surprise, surprise, the difference between someone like Endorsi and someone like Rachel is Endorsi, I do think, actually cares about Baam, like, as far as, like, if he's happy and what he's going through. So she might be happy that he's, like, finally deciding to cut ties with Rachel, but knowing that that's still going to hurt on some level for him, like, is probably not a fun thing for her to watch him go through. And because he's obviously distraught about that, and plus the death of Kun. I think that it's sort of like I don't want to say necessarily like be careful what you wish for, but it's one of those things where, like, this just didn't go the way 100% like Endorsi thought it would, or she didn't, like, maybe realize, like, all the sort of kickbacks or the bad sides of, like, how this altercation would end. How do I think this will affect Endorsi's character in the future? I think it's, hopefully going to make her a little bit more open about being aware of, let's just start with Baam's emotions and then we'll get to other people for later. But, like, being a little bit more open and aware of Baam and what he's feeling. And maybe, again, I don't know, I'm just going off that conversation that, like, maybe her character will start to shift away from, like, oh, I'm jealous of the attention that Rachel gets from Baam, I want that attention, to more of, like, something we've said about Eon, where it's like just prioritizing Baam's happiness over what Baam wants over what you want, right? Because for somebody like Endorsi, that's probably a pretty good first step in terms of leveling out and balancing that character a little bit. Because, as we know, Endorsi is very much like, what I want comes first, and, whoever I like and don't like, that gets sorted out later. Yeah.
Yeah, I mirror a lot of the points that you put forward. I think that I think the biggest one is that Endorsi actually cares about Baam's well-being. So when he goes off to say, I'm going to make her pay for what she's done, there's a little bit of a sadness that comes with that, because she probably doesn't want Baam to lose who he is in the process. Yeah, does it drive her nuts that Baam constantly chases down this girl that is not deserving of him whatsoever? Of course. But at the same time, he doesn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So she, at least the way I see it, wouldn't want Baam to go down this path and to do something that he can never come back from, right? And lose a part of himself in the process, what makes him so special and what made her like him to begin with, right? What pulled her out of maybe a dark place and helped her see the light. So I think it's a very interesting dynamic, that they're going through here. And I think that as far as it affects her character in the future, I would hope that it's something along the lines of a centering, a grounding of Baam when maybe he steps too far and goes to those crazy lengths, where at first it was Endorsi being like, why don't you just kill? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And Baam is like, well, because of this, that, and the third. There's more to it. And then now it becomes the reverse. Now that Baam has gotten a lot of power, he has the ability to go to that next level, cross the line. It's Endorsi being like, hey, I remember one time when this wise person once told me that it wasn't necessarily the best route to go down to do this, right? To do all these sort of messed up things. And now I'm here to kind of return the favor and tell you that maybe we shouldn't go this far. You're Baam. You're what saved me in a sense, right? And I don't want you to lose yourself in trying to rid yourself of this virus that we call Rachel. So
there's actually a line of hers that's coming to my mind now from way back from season 1 when she first meets Baam, or like when they meet on during the hide and seek test, and she says something along the lines of like, "Oh, don't worry, you're not the kind of person that can climb this tower because it requires you to be like mean and dirty and betray people. Leave that to someone like me." Right? I think sort of like what you were saying, you framed it well, where it's like Endorsi. Part of what attracted Endorsi, I think, to Baam is his sort of white knight policy here, where he's not willing to step over that line and go that far. And I think that's what gives her sort of like an anchor, so that she doesn't end up losing herself in that kind of mindset. So yeah, like it's one thing for she wants him to get rid of Rachel, but not at the cost of what makes Baam to her.
Yeah, well said. All right, so last question we have here comes from The Only Way 029. The Only Way asks, was Baam actually intended by Arlene to be the protagonist of the story? What if there's more to his presence in the tower than Providence? And includes a screenshot here that says, why would you punish me? You stole everything from me. Why would you? And it's when Rachel is, clenching the fist and saying that you're a monster. Arlene always referred to you as a monster. You shouldn't be the one to do this. So I think this is very interesting, and I'm very curious to have this sort of thing fleshed out. Again, we keep on getting little breadcrumbs of information about Baam's past from different sources, but it doesn't seem to always be the full picture. So one of the things that really intrigues me about the story, and I say it virtually every time, is I love to find out what the characters' end goals are and their motivations for why they help Baam, why they go against Baam, why they do this, that, and the third, right? I'm very curious about Jahad and what he has to say, even if it's wrong. I'm just curious to hear it, to be honest with you. Kind of same thing with Rachel, right? Like what the whole, what the whole deal is, even though she's terrible. Like, you get my point. So this is something that's very interesting. I would love to hear it from the horse's mouth, as it were, Arlene. Obviously, I can't trust Rachel to tell the truth on this, but it would be cool to know in some way, shape, or form. And I'm curious to see at the end of the story, I think I would wager to say that there's probably a theory thrown around that Baam might not be the end-all be-all protagonist at the end of the story. He might, I know we've talked about this kind of in passing and joking around, but there is a semblance of something there that Baam, his abilities when he's fighting Jahad are they resemble the void, darkness, things that swallow up the light, right? There's like this very demonic presence to his power, and he has a fantastic willpower and resolve to be able to control those things. And so it doesn't necessarily make you a villain just because your powers resemble that, right? At all. It comes down to Baam himself, but it'd be interesting to see if there's like this kind of reversal here where at the end result, it's actually Baam was intended to really be this element of destruction for the tower and just to take it all down and destroy it rather than being its savior per se, being its judge and jury and executioner, right? And that's interesting for Baam because it's if he goes against the grain in that and what he was intended for, this is going to be his whole character arc to me is and we already see seedlings of that when he fights Jahad and realizes his own power and wants to be himself, draws the line. What is Baam going to choose to be, right? Because we might find out that even we already have a clue that Arlene herself, right? And obviously she loved her child, but it seems there's this facet of revenge that goes along with it and says, okay, you're the embodiment of me, you're living on, but like you need to go do this, right? Is that what Arlene really intended? Did something go wrong? Is Baam kind of not her child? Is this the kind of Yura's brother thing where it's like what's their faces? The big breeder went into the thing and it's like the mother rejected, right? Like it was Arlene. Did she have Baam? And because the god revived Baam, but he wasn't Baam, to her, like her motherly instinct was like, no, this isn't mine. So it's like kind of shoved him. I don't know. I'm really curious to hear that, though. And something's telling me that Baam wasn't intended necessarily to be a good guy. Yeah, he's the protagonist, right? Protagonist doesn't necessarily always have to be good, believe it or not. It's just kind of the person that we view the story through their lens. So I think he was meant to be the protagonist, but I don't think necessarily he was meant to be this divine being that would do only good, to the tower. I think there was an element of revenge and destruction that goes along with it, and judgment rather than grace and justice, if that makes sense. Justice in the most violent sense of the term, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that it's interesting when the way this question talks about was Baam intended by Arlene to be the protagonist? Because last discussion we sort of went into this, mini rabbit hole of like, well, who is the real enemy in terms of like how this story started, right? Like, were Jahad and the heads of the 10 families and that group of people, like, did they maybe feel a little bit subjugated or oppressed or what have you by the outside gods? Because again, from what we've gathered from these gods, they don't seem to be like the chillest of people, and they don't seem like they're like, yeah, do whatever you want. You want to go up that tower and start your own thing? I'm cool with that. Oh, you want to use our symbol? Yeah, go ahead. They seem like, oh no, like none of that. So my thing is, if Arlene came down the tower or just outside, and pleaded with these gods, who again would be the same gods that they initially fled from, and her whole thing was like, oh, I at whatever cost, like, I need you to save this child's life. And if that is what happened, and the cause and effect of that is that Baam now is not even really so much Baam in terms of his soul and his personality and his own agency, and just sort of like a mouthpiece for these gods and sort of a vessel in a sense, who's to say that Arlene's intentions even matter in who Baam is and what he's doing? Again, her wish, and I frame this in the manner of like this whole be careful what you wish for, like your words matter genie type thing, where it's like all she wanted was life to be brought back to Baam. That in no way signifies that like the child and baby with the personality he had when he died is what came back. That just means that body is going to get another life. But who's to say that the gods, again, didn't take this as an opportunity to introduce a devil into this tower because of their grudge with Jahad, and they were like, okay, so if Jahad is the reason that this happened to your baby, and he is up here building his whole empire in this tower, let's send a devil into this tower to take away everything from Jahad. We are going to use this vessel to destroy and rip down everything Jahad has built in here, because like that sends a message. Do not cross us under any circumstance. So I think it's more of, yeah, Baam is the protagonist, like you were saying, in the very vague, raw sense that he is the focal point of this story, but in no way does that necessarily automatically tie him to being, the savior. And he might, again, be, it's all perspective, right? Because he might be a savior to the people of the tower that are being subjugated to Jahad. But that also, looking at that in a more general, broad scope implies that he is a savior and he's come into this tower to do good. Again, perspective. To Jahad, Baam is a devil. He is a monster. He is literally here and has somebody who has the power to destroy everything Jahad has built and maintained up until this time. Whereas to Baam and everybody, again, who is opposing Jahad, he is not a devil. And even, I would go so far as to say, even if in the technical terms, by what the outside gods like say or think, if he is a devil, perhaps this tower needs a monster, right? Perhaps the god that Jahad has become is a god that is no longer welcome in this tower, or is a god that the people of this tower on a majority rule type beat don't want in this tower anymore, and they need a devil to come in here and rip this whole thing apart. So yeah, I do think there's a way that you could, I guess, talk about it or frame Baam as the devil, as the monster in the story. But I guess my point is that I don't know if that's necessarily, I wouldn't go so far as to be like monster equals villain, right? Because I think if anything, and again, one of the things I love about the story, even talking about Baam as a protagonist, because if that is the way that Baam was created by these outside forces, it is so interesting that Baam has this personality of like, no, I will not do anything wrong. I will not kill anybody. I will, like, that he has this, again, sort of white knight persona being what his initial mission is supposed to be. one thing that we know about the story is that complexity is king here, right? There is no white and black. There is, there is only gray. And I think that exists with every character, specifically people like Baam and Jahad, where it's like, yeah, Jahad is, again, through the focal point of the story, if we're using Baam as a protagonist, Jahad is our enemy because that is Baam's enemy. But that does not necessarily make Jahad the villain, and it doesn't necessarily make Baam the villain. It just means that these two opposing sides are sort of caught and interlocked in this fight that, again, I don't even know how much of it is like their fight, right? Like, this is not a fight really like between Baam and Jahad. It is a, as Jahad sort of said in the last couple of chapters, this is a fight between man and fate, right? Between people and the gods. And I think that like the way this is structured, again, it will definitely be a focal point for Baam's character growth and development going forward. If it's like Baam's personality, who Baam either is now or who he ends up becoming because of all of his friends and all the things that he learns, is that going to be enough to win out and change what is destined to happen? Or does this battle spell out the end of the tower? Or again, even like, is that a bad thing? Because we talked in the last discussion about this whole thing where the administrators even on some of the floors, and again, some of the people are tired and fed up with the way Jahad has been doing things. Like, I would think that there's a reason, if my theory stands that Hedon is running this, is the one in charge of the tower in a sense that, all these people have sort of just been aiming Baam, right? They've been guiding him and making sure he gets to the top of this tower because they're like, this is the way type thinking, where it's like, Jahad, you have had this reckoning coming for a very long time, and that time is today.
Well said. Anyway, folks, those are our questions for today. Thank you to everyone who posed their question in our Discord channel. Don't shy away from asking them every single week after our live streams. You have 1 hour after the live stream concludes. And if you want to catch those live streams, you can go over to the AOA Reacts channel. The link will be in the description down below to catch those on Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Big shout out to our patrons, especially our acolytes of anime. We have Stoic, we have Nathan. We also have our comment of the day. Isaiah, if you want to read that for us, and then if we have some sort of question to ask the folks who made it to the end of this video.
Okay, so today's comment comes from Mapanzu Ilwick. I am sorry if I butchered that name.
I think it's pretty close.
The comment is, the name of Jahad's needle is Lacalicus. I love the way. Yeah, I love the way that you rage about Rachel. There's a French video with English subs that you guys need to watch. If you check it out when you finish your read through of the second season, you will understand how SIU wrote this story and his characters. Rachel is his favorite character of SIU for a reason. Relax. Next to this Tower of God uses anthology from different myths, pantheons, and religions, the gods that have children with the humans, even them, the situation in the middle of the tower with the 10 families, similarly with Baam and Jesus being born on the 25th, him being reborn and sent by the gods. Yeah, so it's definitely interesting to think that, like, not that it's surprising in any way that, like, great stories are inspired by other greater stories, right? So it's like, why, it's sort of like the if it's not broke, don't fix it type thing, where it's like, why would you not, if it makes sense, pull from either other stories, legends, myths, whatever, to craft your story. And it is definitely very obvious that Tower of God has taken inspiration from all the things that Manzapu listed here. And I think it's cool. I definitely think putting in this sort of sci-fi or fantasy twist on those things and making this fresh, unique thing out of it, is quite literally how good art is made.
Agreed. All right, folks. So that is our comment of the day. Question of the day will be: how do you pronounce the name? Caliban?
Yeah.
New guy. What is the instrument that Caliban plays? Answer in the comments down below, and then write your comment, and it might just end up on our next Tower of God discussion. If you liked the video today, make sure you guys are liking, subscribing if you're new here, hitting that notification bell so you don't miss any future content. Also subscribing to AOA Reacts, like I said before, link is down in the description. Sharing with your friends, because the more the merrier. It starts with Isaiah and I, but it definitely doesn't end here. It ends with you, the community at large. So comment your thoughts down below. What did you think of our discussion? What did you think of these questions? What did you think about these chapters of Tower of God? And how excited are you for us to keep climbing? Because I know that we certainly are. But until next time, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We love your beautiful faces, and we will catch you all on the flip. Peace.
Peace.
Ninjas are samurais, blazing the kunais. Find me in the leaf of the cloud, screaming out Bankai. We just some ghouls though, who like seeing parts fly. They like what you saying, Goma got more through the storylines. I tested your neck from the start, my hunters gon' come for your heart. I promise you'll land in my boulevard, left them in one piece, no